that's what we're going to try for today, for the sake of recordings, maybe. Okay, so like this first paper or draft thereof, which I drafted today in the morning, and I'd like to get some peer review tonight. So where I'm coming from here is you might have heard in life sciences, like in pharmacology or in or in like diet studies, if that exists, you might have heard the notion of homeostasis in various forms. Like you might have heard about a theory that human body has a lipostat, so like a target weight and a target fat level, and when a person tries to either lose or gain weight, they have trouble because the body maintains a set weight. And there's been this notion about applying the same sort of idea to psychiatry, and namely to and namely they postulate like a thermostat that is a target mood level. So like some people are naturally like happy, and they are basically like happy most of the time, and some people are naturally more like I don't know, neutral, and they are most of the time like that. And in this framework, depression is like a condition where a person's thermostat is set too low. And what I'm going to do here is explore this idea with the lens of mathematical modeling, but to get some more background, so just to give you more of an intuition how this idea applies in psychiatry and psychology, you might have, you probably have even done it yourself. Like if you're feeling low, if you're feeling sad, you're likely to behave in a way which perpetuates this. Like if you're feeling sad, you're likely to listen to sad music, and you're likely to not go out much and like just sit there and like this is kind of the opposite of what you would do if you were feeling happy. So like I asked ChatGPT to do to generate me a list of 10 things one could do to stay sad, and like they are pretty straightforward here, and indeed it seems like they perpetuate this particular mood. Yeah.
First stupid kind of feedback. This number 10 and 10 simple ways kind of gets confused with the section numbering.
Yeah.
It reads like section 10 simple ways.
I see. Yeah. Thanks.
Okay. Is it the same like with the mood and sexual orientation too? If you're gay, you continue being gay despite your
I mean,
okay, it's two questions.
Okay.
I mean, you could say that as an. I'd frame it in a slightly different way, I think, because in the case of mood, probably every person has had an experience of being happy and of being sad. In case of sexuality, maybe not so, and so it's more a case of exploration for me, I think. Okay, so like that was.
Oh, wait a minute.
Yeah.
I want to stay on this different kind of tips. Yeah, they're actually pretty interesting. I found I read little bit when I come here, so maybe we can read it. And
Okay.
pronounce. You take it like, okay, this is ChatGPT, give me, and I suppose that it's okay.
No, I mean,
I don't know what he gives. Actually, I think he spits out pretty interesting stuff. No?
Okay, we could discuss those if you like. Like my initial I just thought that these are pretty like straightforward and agree with my experience. Do you have any particular point you'd like to highlight, or would you like us just to go through them?
Oh, okay. I don't know. Actually, do you think that ChatGPT can use it to self-treatment, or like a psychology assistant?
Yes.
Okay.
I mean,
can you move the razor and the marker?
Yeah.
Sure.
Thank you.
Okay. Since we stopped here anyway, I can elaborate on a few ideas I can see here. So first, to address your question about using ChatGPT as a therapist, kind of, I think so. One way to view therapy is to factor it into, on one hand, your relationship with the therapist. It might be, for some people, one of the few healthy relationships they have. So, like, where the other person doesn't try to fuck them up anyhow. And, like, that might be important in terms of, like, getting new experience in interacting with people, getting, copying some behavioral patterns from the therapist, so seeing them as a role model, so stuff like that. Maybe ChatGPT doesn't fulfill that exactly because it's just a different setting, because it's not clear if your experience in talking with typing and reading from the screen translates to the experience you get talking with a person. So like maybe that's not what ChatGPT can do right now. But the other part would be so one thing would be just reflecting your thoughts and emotions back to you. So because when they're inside, you maybe can't really look at them because you're quite engrossed in them, as in like you're feeling them, which means you can't analyze them. And when you type them out, when you speak them out loud, and someone repeats them back to you, then maybe you can see them like from the third person view, and maybe that's useful, and that's absolutely what ChatGPT can do. This is actually what Eliza from 70s could do. So like very simple chatbots, it just reflected your words back to you. And then another way which ChatGPT can be useful as a therapist would be to so I think therapists, much like consultants, are people who have a large variety of frameworks for a particular subject area at their disposal, and so like sort of I don't know, when you ask an IT engineer at an interview, how would you design Twitter, they rummage through their box of design patterns and they take them and build from them something which could conceivably work. And the same sort of thing happens in other domains. Like if you asked an interior designer about how they would design a space, they again would rummage through a box of frameworks, and the therapist does the same thing when thinking about a client's query, and ChatGPT can do the same. So that's how it can be useful, answering the question. And another way, like one way to generalize this list here is to think about the concept of behavioral activation. This is a concept from cognitive behavioral therapy, which says that basically when you do stuff, you tend to get kind of energized and active and happy. So basically doing stuff good, not doing stuff bad, or at least sad. Yeah, so this is why this list is largely about like isolation, stasis, avoidance.
What what was the primary goal of this list? Just to show.
I,
I mean, the discussion about this went so long. It wasn't planned to be like this.
So
not,
this
not
is
really. I was just
how-
answering the question.
So this is CBD, so cognitive behavioral
Yeah.
therapy. It's describe it more like a state of a human, and in this way you can go to the depressive state. So if you want to be depressive or to be sad, just make all of them, all of these tips, and you probably will get some disease, mental disease in the end.
well, maybe.
And also you should stay and you should suffer more. Maybe some you can imagine some different kind of.
Yeah, so I'm not sure about mental disease, but I'm pretty sure that if a person.
Personality disorder is possible.
If
Mental
it,
disease is unlikely, but personality disorder is very possible.
yeah, so I'd rather not go deeper here, but I'm pretty sure if a person does that, they will feel sad, like most people. Okay, alright. So like, let's go further. And when I think about how that works for me, like I know I do this sort of things when I'm sad, and when I think why, I come up with the following idea. I have a hot and a cold mode, and the cold mode has low energy, and like that's the truth in the physical world. And it seeks to preserve this low energy because it's little, we have to conserve it. And this entails behaviors which are procrastination, avoidance, scattered attention, so inability to focus, and aversion to risk. And the next step that happens, so like first I have low energy, then I seek to conserve it, then I procrastinate, avoid, then I criticize what I'm doing, so like that's not what I want to be doing, that's not me, and then I do self-destructive behaviors. All right, makes sense?
Yeah, what's the logic? Where does the self-destruction come from?
I'm sorry?
What's the logic? Where does the self-destruction come from?
It comes from this being ego-dystonic and like not me, as in like
Well, there are two parts to this. A kind of simple model and simple explanation why you start engaging in self-destructive behaviorism. Like, supposedly in this state, you really have low energy, so it's actually engaging in somewhat and high energy behavior would be destructive to you, to your psyche anyway. So your psyche tries to preserve this and preserve the state, preserve the energy, and thus, if it can't, you don't allow it to just do nothing because that's procrastination, that's bad. It finds ways to make you think that you cannot engage in behavior. Like, you're not going running around if you broke your leg. That's like kind of physically impossible. So, okay, let's break a leg and then we don't have to run around. Because, like, now I have an excuse.
So by that, if I don't have energy and I don't want to do anything, then like it's a self-destruction mechanism. I start to view myself as someone who can't do anything, which makes it easy for me not to do anything. In which way I destroy my old image of myself. I mean that.
No, that's more involved picture. I'm saying more basic and more simple picture. You really cannot do stuff, but exactly you want to do stuff. That's the how to say contradiction inside your psyche. One part of it says, okay, you must. I want to do stuff. I want to achieve.
so. I think the framework you're proposing is somewhat in a different direction than what I want to go here. So I like to propose on 21.
Yeah. Well, exactly. I'm saying that this is very basic model and kind of very low level. And on top of that, you have more involved processes, cognitive processes that kind of suggest you moving into self-destructive behavior.
Okay, so the model.
I also wanted to
Yeah.
ask a question to be different also in another direction. Do you think that this kind of moods, as you say, sad moods, they can be achieved from outside of the world and also from inside world. So kind of when a guy started to grow up, when a human started to grow up, for example, he can have inside some sadness, or he can take some he can interact with the other world somehow,
Alright.
and in traumatized way.
Okay.
And
Okay.
yeah. So,
Yeah,
so what do you think about another state when a human, for example, he sat inside from the birth, for example? Do you believe it's possible?
All right. So let me first finish with that question here, and then get back to your question. So right, my model, the model I'd like to propose here about self-destructive behaviors is when I procrastinate, avoid, and so on, I am a bad person, and so I deserve to suffer. Okay. Going back to your question, so in terms of the model I'm proposing here, your question could be rephrased as: is a person's thermostat, so is a person's like target mood level set at birth, or maybe not, or like if a person can have it set differently during the runtime. And empirically, it is clearly the case, like not clearly the case, empirically there is consensus at this point in time that both happen, as in people are, some people are more or less genetically predisposed to depression, and anxiety and PTSD too, I think. And people can definitely like contact depression, and like one risk factor for depression is basically very unpleasant physical illnesses. So like if you always are in bodily pain, then that tends to get people depressed. Okay. So yeah, going forward here, we talked about this like progression, low energy, conservation, avoidance, criticism, self-destruction. And what I claim here is that risk aversion, so trying to avoid risky behaviors, is kind of adaptive, as in it kind of makes sense, because if I don't have a lot of energy, then maybe I can't handle risky situations. As in, like, maybe, I don't know, maybe I shouldn't do, maybe I shouldn't go to parties where I might get into conflicts, or maybe I shouldn't, I don't know, get into fights. So that kind of makes sense. But what maybe doesn't make sense is that I think that what risk aversion does, it considers absolute expected change in energy. So essentially what it does, it tries to keep energy constant instead of trying to keep energy non-decreasing. So does that make sense? Okay. So if you take that premise, so if this mechanism, what it tries to do is keep energy constant, then our challenge of moving from a cold state to a hot state, or from a sad state to a better state, is to build a pathway of gradually nourishing steps. So like we can't go to a state which directly gets us a lot of resource, gets us a lot of energy, because we would reject that. We couldn't handle that. We must build a gradual pathway. Right? Okay. So now we get into the fun bit of the model. We try to model particular ways an agent can go around this. So we have we discretize our time by time steps t, and at each time step we pick an action a of t, and an action has energy e of a of t, and then a correct algorithm is such that an increase of energy between between the steps is bounded by delta, and the new energy is always better, is always more than the old one. That's the criteria of correctness. So that's like a correct algorithm, but what seems to happen in practice is I either, independent of the time step, so like every time, try to pick the very best action of them all, and this doesn't work out because it's like it's too high energy for me. So I try to do it and I fail. Like maybe I don't know, I try to go out to a party and don't enjoy myself, or I try to read something complicated and like I can't, or I try to I don't know, even speaking of basically it's going somewhere and not enjoying myself, or maybe I don't know, I'm doing some extreme sport or like fast driving and my attention is scattered and I might even crash, so stuff like that. And then when I fail, I can criticize myself. And another mechanism is to think like something needs to be done, and then do something. So pick a random action, and like a random action probably doesn't fulfill this criteria. So this again fails, either because it's not nourishing or because it's too hard, and I can again self-criticize. Is it alright? So there's 3 algorithms. Okay. And the next transition I want to make here is when I self-criticize, I ought, like I'm a bad person, right? I must feel bad. So that means I must turn down my thermostat. So what this entails, if you take that, is that these 2 algorithms, the argmax algorithm and the random algorithm, must never go up, must almost never go up, and must always bottom out to 0 energy. Okay? But in practice, this is not what happens. Like in practice, I'm here talking to you and not like miserable in my room, wanting to die. So we have to refine our model because it doesn't explain reality. And okay, that's not a nice page break here, but okay. So I'm going to introduce a few more variables, and these variables are going to be a person P has a target energy level, so like thermostat level, and actual energy they have at this point of time, and the energy they think they have. So that's E hat. And I write it like this. So like a person is a triple indexed by time, and actually why is that that's an equal? I'm not sure why that's an equal. So anyhow, the person is this triple, and if we think of those previous algorithms in terms of this triple, then what the argmax algorithm, which always picks the maximum action, does, it sets the target as infinity, and it sets the perceived energy level as infinity, and like so therefore picks always the highermost action irrespective of our energy level. And random algorithm just doesn't care about this information at all. Like it just picks a random action totally. And again, we go back to our question: why don't this bottom out in energy 0? I think that what happens is when energy and perceived energy decrease, at some point they converge, so they get close, and at some energy level, which I here spell as beautiful E small, happens a phase change, and a person switches to an entirely different algorithm, which I call survival algorithm. And what it does is a person doesn't plan anyhow, like they only have their current call of fusion, in this cone of vision, they pick any arbitrary action which they can make and which is better than their current state. So they pick any action from what they can see which makes them better and which they can take by the energy level. And if we grant that, then we can see that this algorithm is actually good, as in it actually works, and it works in this domain. So it works from up to the B2E small energy level, and okay, it doesn't plan, but if a person resides at their home and they probably don't want to go too much outside their home because those are high energy and maybe they couldn't take them, it's actually a very adaptive algorithm. Trouble comes when a person, this is a recovery algorithm. This is an algorithm by which a person can reliably raise the energy level back. But what happens is when the energy levels rise, they cross this threshold, they diverge again, and this algorithm doesn't work anymore. And we get back to those two earlier argmax and random algorithms, which always get us back down. So what we expect to happen here is a person always hovers around the E small level. When they get up, when they bounce, they basically drop back down quickly again, and then gradually move up to the E small, and that's the way they go. And that's a lot like depression, I think. So that's the model I set up today. Any questions? Any comments?
Any simulation?
We need
We
need charts. Yes.
Yeah.
We need charts. Yeah.
Okay.
Need simulations and charts.
Right.
Also, asymptotic analysis would be nice.
And also some pictures, drawings.
Okay. A picture of a sad person. A picture of a sad person.
Of myself, for example.
Right.
Doctor Strange.
Of cats.
Mhm.
Doctor Strange.
Yes.
Okay. Any other comments?
Why did you feel you want to write this?
You have depression, right?
I mean, what spurred me to write this was so I recently read an article which proposed the thermostat model, and the thermostat model. So this target mood level model.
The homeostasis is thermostat is the same.
So yes, but I think homeostasis is normally used either narrowly to talk about level of cells in the blood and temperature, so physiological sort of thing, or generally to talk about conservation about a particular level.
Regression to the mean.
Sorry.
Regression to the mean.
And a lipostat is homeostasis for fat levels, and a thermostat is homeostasis for mood levels. Okay, and yeah, so I read this article about the thermostat model, and I was procrastinating doing my homework on bounce propagation for constraint solving. So
it's for when depression.
Well, procrastination isn't consider that this model applies for mood levels in general. So it's not about depression really; it's about mood, and also procrastination isn't always about mood. I think in this case it was about the subject area being intimidating to me, and this wasn't intimidating. Watching someone's lectures and doing someone's homework is sort of like reading someone's code, not fun at times, and writing your own ideas out is fun. So, okay, any other comments? Yeah.
I think this idea of the difference between actual energy level and perceived energy level, yeah, deserves deeper kind of.
So about the convergence and divergence.
That's one thing. Yeah. Well, I try to model that with some differential equations. It seems there might be or should be interesting dynamic.
Okay.
In the sense of dynamic
Yeah.
differential equations.
Uh,
Time dynamic.
So would you model that like from first principles, or would you try to gather empirical data and model it?
We can get empirical data that would be even more interesting, but yeah, kind of from first principles in terms of proposing some kind of reasonable assumptions and trying to model from that and see the graphs, how it behaves, what's the behavior of the system.
Okay.
Does it converge to something or diverges if there are location points and stuff like that?
All right. Okay. I think I have one question for the audience. So, would you say that the way I'm writing it out, so like the notation, like the language I'm using, makes sense? So does make sense for you?
So this hypothesis can be how in this hypothesis you can treat yourself. So what you get from this model?
Great question. I think at this point, this model isn't really constructive in that sense because like it describes the dynamic, but I'm not exploring like what follows. So like treatment ideas. I mean, I can piggyback on existing results from CBT and say that empirically it seems that so we have this like broken dynamic where we have a good algorithm at low energy levels and bad algorithms at high energy levels. So this suggests that we should focus on this part of the question, and one way that like one therapeutic technique which is used is to like fix particular behaviors for the patient. Like you tell them, you don't do that, you don't even think about doing stuff, you just do this thing always. And like you write it down, I don't know, on the hand. So they always have it on hand. And this works.
And later, somehow you wire this behavior into your brain.
I mean, it just becomes a habit, and then it's fine.
Okay.
So like that's one way to answer that. But yeah, great question. If I'm going to write more about this, then I'm sure to consider that. Thanks.
What type of therapy you mentioned actually is it religion? Or
It's like a reading club religion.
I mean,
Therapy.
I mentioned a particular sort of behavioral intervention.
but therapist, so yeah.
I mean, I might have simplified it for the sake of discussion.
Slightly.
Right. To make proof simpler, you know.
And do you consider another axis? So one axis of mood mood is one axis basically, and another axis is time.
Okay.
And did you consider different axes? For example, mood can be three-dimensional thing with different how to say this, neuron transmitters, for example, into neurons that you can gather this information from somewhere and to make a more complex model.
Yeah, okay, I got it. Also, I think it's going to be the last question, and I will leave the stage to the next speaker. So this model here is a first principles model. So it's like it's literally just something I thought about this morning. So like no empirics,
Okay.
well, at least like no direct connection to empirical data. So like no datasets here, no pandas, no Python, only LaTeX. And I think what you're asking about is if you could gather some empirical data about like neuronal activations or like some hormone levels and something, and like try to make inferences from that. And sure, we could. And the last thing I read about this is like there's an up and coming line of research about trying to activate or inhibit particular brain regions with ultrasound. So this makes for wearable devices which conceivably could modulate mood. So like that's a currently active area of research, and like they of course collect this sort of empirical data there to know what to stimulate how. So yeah.
Well, on this note of kind of 3D model of emotions, there is the cube of emotions model of Löfheim, and yeah, somewhat kind of established based on some empirical clinical data. That's one thing. Another suggestion is to cite the model Von Droid's dream of electric sheep as a prior art, because the idea of mood regulation and even maintaining sadness was already established there.
Yeah, I also think
Some 60 years ago.
I also think it was there in the Foundation series of novels or something like that, like where there were two species of humans, one into biotech, one into tech, and those into tech were heavily into like
I don't remember
brain hack and stuff.
anything specifically about mood there, while in the electric sheep it was